I wasn't that interested in politics. I was trying to follow some news from the US because Google is a American company, and politics in the US affect the company. So I wanted to kind of understand what might happen and how the company might act, what the culture was. But I wasn't trying to follow any internal politics ideologies and such. And that is why most of, for the first year and a half, probably, I wasn't posting anything. And then I just bumped into an announce of White Fragility talk by Robin DiAngelo. The talk was supposed to happen in one of the US offices. I don't remember which one. And
was this the Sojourn class? Was it called that?
Well, Sojourn, I don't know when Sojourn actually started, but it is based at least partially on Robin DiAngelo's work, at least Sojourn syllabus that is available from inside the company states some quotes Robin DiAngelo and points to her books and whatever. But the talk itself was supposed to happen early 2018, I believe, maybe spring. And the whole concept was pretty new to me. I wasn't prepared to that. So it did look like, if you say that basically white people are all racists, and if you disagree with being racist, then that's a proof of you being racist because you cannot handle your own racism, and someone pointing to that. The whole idea did look bonkers, totally logical, and it did look divisive and contradicting policies about no racial discrimination and such. So I started asking questions.
Yeah, I imagine coming from Ukraine, that was quite a culture shock. I imagine they don't have a lot of that sort of ideologies, as you say, in Ukraine.
In Ukraine, there are people that support some of these ideologies, but I would say Ukraine is way more on the conservative side, at least from the US perspective, probably. This hasn't yet arrived to Ukraine in full force, whatever. And there are negatives there as well, because you can make cases that there are discriminations there on different bases. For example, employers might not be as willing to hire women because there are legal. It can be presented as a gender discrimination, sex discrimination, but there are underlying things like these employers have to guarantee some benefits in case of pregnancy, and small companies not been able to handle that, so they just don't want to get into that direction. So they start sometimes filtering out women or questioning women whether women plan to have a family or kids near future and whatever. So there are things that could be improved, not necessarily in the woke way, but there are things that are not great there. We've heard a lot about the Western world, the US, Europe, and so on, and especially, I believe, Russia and some Ukrainian politicians have been pretty vocal about things like gay rope. They sometimes say instead of Europe because of all the support for gay rights and such.
I wasn't aware they called it that.
Sometimes, yes.
I have heard Putin come out a few times recently and slam the what he calls woke, I suppose.
So it did look like just a scary set of tales to convince people not to go in the direction of Europe, and it did look ridiculous. So when I moved to Switzerland, and hopefully Switzerland is not on the woke side, at least I haven't seen that much, but it did look like at least some of these stories of things going too far were true. And this is a thing that is not just about more conservative, whatever, Russia and post-Soviet countries in general, and Europe. But one of Russia's authors, I believe Viktor Shenderovich, when the aggression of Russia against Ukraine started, he wrote an article that Ukrainian right, nationalist right, and Putin's government, they were basically reinforcing each other, because something that some dumb people in Ukraine do is taken by the Russian government as an example of how things are.
Right.
Then it gets propagated and Russia acts based on that. That adds pressure onto Ukraine. There is a resentment of that, and there are more people that go into direction of nationalism, let's say. And they basically reinforce each other that way. And the same thing happens with this woke Europe and Russian attempt to stay away from that, as far as I understand. So that reinforces each other as well. So I wasn't totally surprised to see all this when I came here. But I wasn't prepared to have discussions about that. I've never been a part of some disputes with random people or whatever. And I didn't know the extent of these things. So when I first saw these white fragility announcements, I got quite surprised, and I started first asking questions as why is it not considered to be a discrimination? And then from there, we got into lengthy discussion about a lot of things, and that was my first experience of getting reported to HR.
In 2018, you were warned, weren't you? Was it October? You had a warning letter, or for some of the questions you had. Could you tell us a bit about
that? Yes, and autumn 2018, I was told by a manager that our HR representative wanted to talk to me. And I was invited in a conversation with the manager and HR, and they presented me with, they were not telling me that they were reprimanding me. They were not telling me to stop doing what I was, writing what I was writing. They were telling me it was just them giving me feedback about people not happy about regarding my behavior. And then it was up to me to decide what to do there. It is kind of corpse speak, because at the same time, internally, Google claims, and probably there are external mentions of that, that one of the things that are very important for Google employees is appreciating feedback and acting on that. So basically, I don't know whether it was intended this way or not, or whether they were just trying to pretend they were not putting any pressure onto me, or this was some kind of an elaborate plan by the company. But I was put in a trap, because either I don't listen to their feedback, and then I violate these requirements that internally, or I do accept this feedback and stop talking about these things and stop fixing. There is another requirement that is, again, mentioned all the time internally, that you are supposed to do the right thing even at the cost to yourself.
Right.
And you can claim that it wasn't my place to argue about company's policies or about some talks and ask questions because I was an engineer. But how do you start fixing a problem unless someone starts talking about it?
Yeah,
it's you have to start with some kind of feedback mechanism to detect problems.
Of course. Do Google encourage you to talk about their policies, and do they encourage discussion, or is it sort of said that to save face, but then quietly within the company you're not meant to talk about it?
After firing James Damore, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google and now of the whole Alphabet, made a post on the official blog.google and mentioned there that actions by Damore were not okay, but at the same time, people being afraid to talk about policies and about diversity was also not okay. And that dissent was important, and people should be able to feel safe and speak about these things. It was a public announcement by the company, basically, that the company itself never actually followed, because in this first conversation with HR, I was reported for multiple things during that half a year, let's say. And one of the things was me. Google has an internal platform to submit questions to meetings, company-wide meetings in some centralized way. It's called Rory. And before any big meeting like company-wide meetings, so-called TGFs that had been happening almost every week back in the day, they got canceled later. Someone submitted a question about basically why don't we hire more veterans? And there might be a merit to that question.
As in military veterans?
My understanding, yes.
Yeah.
There might be a merit as in veterans possess specific skills that are useful for the company. Let's hire more of them.
Yeah.
But if you just start focusing on one group, again, it looks like against companies' policies. You're not supposed to discriminate against veterans, but not discriminating and actively seeking specific group of people are different things. And if the company seeks these people because of specific skills that are useful for the company, then let's talk about what these skills are and what other groups might possess these skills.
Yeah.
And that was my basically question: why specifically veterans, and what skills do you mean they have?
So you felt that people were being hired for reasons other than merit, I suppose?
It wasn't about, not in that case. In that case, I was just trying to understand the question, what that person was proposing. But generally, yes, we can talk about this. There have been signs about the company telling us and the public that discrimination is not allowed, and at the same time putting resources into hiring some people before other people, let's say.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not familiar with the full extent of these programs. I've never been an HR or recruiter there, but I've talked to some, and I've seen some internal documents regarding that. So there are questions about that.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.